quiet down. Quiet in the back. It's time to tap into fantasy. Welcome to Tap Into Fantasy, the podcast with a professional fantasy mind and an amateur beer palate. I'm Lance Gandy. You can find me on X at LG_fantasy. Glasses up, my friends. May the best drafts of your past be the worst of your future. Let's tap in. Please do me and the podcast a huge favor and rate and review it on whatever platform you're listening. Your reviews help the #1 indie fantasy sports podcast on Good Pods. Just a little back pat, even if we were the only podcast ranked. Your reviews help the podcast find new listeners, so the podcast can push its influence to incredible heights. You know, like #1 indie fantasy sports podcast. Okay, it's that time again, folks. The opening draft is here again, where I open a beer I usually haven't tried and sip throughout the episode. Got a brew that'll blow my foam right off? Email me at tapintofantasy@gmail.com and make your case. I'll pick the best pitches, give you a shout out on the show, and crown your pick on the big beer board on the website. All right, so last episode I tried the Staropolsky honey beer. On the big beer board, I gave it a poor score of Winnie the Pooh's Honey Coma Ale, and that is seriously justified. I'm a certified honey aficionado, and this beer was incredible for about half a bottle. Sharing is caring, folks, and you'll be happy you did with this one, because the last half of the bottle will pucker your butthole and leave you just in a diabetic coma. If you want to instantly become my friend, no bribes required, follow me on Untapped. Username tapintofantasy. That's where all the ridiculous beer adventures from the show live on forever. I'll follow you back too, so we can, judge each other's tastes in beer like civilized humans. So this episode, I'll be opening a Medvedgrad Gricka Vještica. Just the name sounds pretty hardcore. It actually means the witch from Grik in Croatian, a historical city in Croatia. Untapped has it rated at 3.48, pretty respectable. It's a Doppelbock, so it should be a bit heavy at 7.5%. The brewery is obviously in Croatia, and it's given the distinction of the largest and oldest craft brewery in the country. It started by brewing beers for its family-owned restaurant in Zagreb, but expanded since its opening in 1994. So this is what they say about this beer. A deliciously creamy and yet drinkable beer with a pleasantly sweet aroma and a rich malty character. I don't know, I love me some Bock, and doubles are just double the fun. Okay, it's time for my favorite segment. These are real reviews from Untapped, because apparently anyone with taste buds and Wi-Fi is now a certified beer critic. From deep within the fermented archives, we open the scrolls of the booze realm. Okay, so the first review was written in Polish. No idea if the translation is correct, but I love it so much anyway. A nice Doppelbock for the pervert. 7.5% flavor and good. So this reads like a Yelp review from a medieval tavern brothel. This ale was brewed in the deep cellars of Castle Kinkhammer, where every sip unlocks one of your hidden browser tabs So his rating was a 3.5 on taste, but a 4.9 on the pervert scale. Would recommend. So next up, we journey to the steamy fields of Union City, Michigan, where the beer is cold, the reviews are vague, and the tan lines are non-existent. A brave soul checked in with this Doppelbock from a nudist resort, tagged 5 friends, gave it 4 stars, and said absolutely nothing. No tasting notes, no comments, just vibes. From the sun-blessed meadows of Union City came the silent toast of 5 brave souls, and nary a pair of dockers among them. Their message, 4 stars, and nothing but the breeze. All right, well, let's pour this beer and, give it the old college try. I have a Boulevard Brewing tulip glass to pour this in today. So let me get my trusty Asheville beer opener. And here is the bottle. It just looks like a pretty lady who's pretty pissed off. All right, let's pour this thing. I'm gonna try to replicate my pour from last episode. It was beautiful. And this one's looking pretty sweet too. Well, that's a beauty. All right. So it's sort of like a ruby red color in the glass. It does smell pretty strong. Okay, I'm gonna give it a taste. That's definitely malty and bold. So I saw a few reviews say it had sort of a metallic taste. I don't taste that on the first sip or two. So I've always cringed at reviews that said this, but it really does have like a wheat bread taste with a little sweetness. Like maybe tasting bread in a beer means my palate has upgraded to slightly above amateur status. I don't know, but I'm gonna go with that and have a celebratory drink. Okay, well, I'll take some more sips throughout the episode and give my full take at the end. Okay, before we go into detail about the AFC North, I want to tell you about my rankings, which can be found on the website tapintofantasy.com. Right now, I just have PPR rankings, which you can use in redraft or on DraftKings, but I should have half PPR and standard done soon. I just updated the rankings, so they're hot off the press. I want to let you know that this episode is powered by Dubby Energy. I've been using Dubby for a few months now when I need that little boost in the afternoon or I need a pick-me-up for a best ball draft. It's clean energy, so you feel good about drinking it too. Use promo code TAPINTOFANTASY for 10% off at checkout. Happy pours, happy scores. Okay, so let's get into our main topic this episode. This will be the second of the divisional previews I'll be doing. I'm going to go team by team in every division and go over all draftable players and their outlooks. I started with the AFC East last episode, so go check that out if you haven't. This episode, I'm going over the AFC North, so the Ravens, Bengals, Browns, and Steelers. I'm going to drink some bread beer before I begin. You know where this beer would absolutely hit the spot? A nudist resort. Okay, so I'll start with those Baltimore Ravens. So Lamar Jackson, what can you say about him? He's such an easy bet. He has the highest ceiling of any QB in the NFL. He finished last year with 49.3 more points than QB2 last year, Josh Allen. Now, the touchdowns could easily come down from I believe it was 45 that he had, passing and rushing. He had a ridiculous stat. I couldn't find it before the show, but it was something like 65% of his passes into the end zone ended in touchdowns. It was the second highest since 2000. It's like he has a few less passing touchdowns, but I still have him as my QB1 and just a super safe pick. So if you're fading Derrick Henry this year, you might be trying a little too hard to galaxy brain your draft. I didn't think I'd be higher than the market on Derrick Henry, but here we are. Last year, RB2, nearly 6 yards a carry. Now he's in a Ravens offense that's still going to bully teams, and I can't see him finishing outside the top 7 unless Lamar gets hurt. He owns the goal line work. Lamar never vultures many touchdowns, and there's zero competition in that backfield. Yes, he's older for a running back, but if Baltimore saw the cliff coming, they'd have brought in insurance. They didn't. So why is he going at RB7? That's a discount on a guy who could easily truck his way to another top 3 finish. Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell are fine enough dart throws in the late rounds. Hill will have some passing game usage no matter what, and will have a couple useful games in best ball. Mitchell will mix in with a few touches on the ground, but would have a pretty big role if Henry was injured. At tight end, Mark Andrews will have his normal role until Isaiah Likely is able to come back from the broken bone in his foot. There may be a ramp-up period there, so it may not be until week 4 or 5 until we see a bigger snap share for Likely, but I definitely expect it to happen this season. Andrews ran hot on touchdowns last year and was losing snaps to Likely. He'll be fine, but don't expect him to be top 5 again. I have him at tight end 8. Likely is fine at his draft price of tight end 20 on most platforms, but it'll be hard to figure out when to start him in redraft without an Andrews injury. He's a good bet in best ball. Okay, I give you permission for a beer break. All right, let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Cool was tied for 3rd in fantasy points per game last year. He had the highest touchdown percentage of his career in 2024 at 6.6%, so we can expect that to regress a little to the mean. I still expect the defense to be butt ugly, so he's a very good bet to lead the league in pass attempts again. I have him at QB5, and he's kind of the last of the no doubt about it elite tier at QB. Very safe play and one of the best stacks in best ball. If you can take him and either Ja'Marr Chase or T. Higgins or both. There's been a steady climb for Chase Brown this summer. I'm a little hesitant because earlier this summer, head coach Zach Taylor hinted at not trusting Brown in pass protection, but all they added in the backfield was 30-year-old journeyman Samaje Perine and 6th-round pick Taj Brooks. Brooks has been getting a little hype, but he's not seriously taking touches from Brown. In PPR, Brown has immense upside, as he had the 3rd most targets for a running back in his starts from week 6 through 17. He was RB7 in that span. If a couple of young pieces on the offensive line can bring this unit from bottom 3 to simply below average, I mean, he could really turn things up. I have him at RB10. He's going at RB9 on DraftKings and RB12 in your home leagues, which is a steal. Perine can be safely booted from your brain, but Taj Brooks could have some upside in best ball. He was very productive in college and a workhorse and would probably be the handcuff to Brown. I've thrown a few darts on him in the late rounds. I mean, there's not much to say about Ja'Marr Chase. Pick him number 1 overall. If you have the pick, he's dominant. T. Higgins is a little tougher. He was dominant in the games he played last year, ranking wide receiver 6 in the 12 games he played. But that's just it. He hasn't played a full year since his rookie year in 2020. He disappears more than my socks in the dryer. You do have to pay a premium for his services this year also, as he's going wide receiver 11 on ESPN and 13 on DraftKings. I don't mind that price. He's going to be at least that good in the games he plays and probably much better. If he actually plays a whole year in 2025, with how much they're going to pass the ball, he's going to smash. It's a little bit of a risk taking them that high with the injury history, and you probably need to pair him with like a consistent veteran later, like a Jacoby Myers or Stephon Diggs, but it could end up paying off in a big way. Andre Yoshivas is still slated to be the wide receiver 3 on this team and has gotten some love in training camp news. That didn't mean much last year, as he didn't even have 500 yards. He had 6 touchdowns, so he was useful a couple weeks in best ball. Even with T. Higgins out 5 games, it was mostly the tight end Mike Gesicki who picked up the slack those games. Like, you could do worse in the very late rounds of best ball than Yoshivas. Mike Gesicki is a nice low end tight end 2 option this year. He finished as tight end 13 last year. His usage picked up notably when T. Higgins was injured. If Chase and Higgins are playing, everyone else on the team is just trying to beg for scraps, so he's sort of an injury bet. He has a super low floor if everyone is healthy, but he's a decent click at tight end 24 on ESPN and 22 on DraftKings. I have him tight end 21. All right, I'm going to try to say cheers in Croatian. Don't laugh at me. Živele. I'm sorry, Croatians. You can laugh at me. All right. So this team is probably the least fun to talk about in all of football. You guessed it, it's the Browns. Let's get this shit show out of the way. Okay, I expect Joe Flacco to be starting week 1 if he's healthy. That at least gives the pass catchers somewhat of a ceiling, but I'd stay far away in fantasy from Flacco. If the Browns aren't good, which is very likely, it could be a season of QB carousel with Kenny Pickett, Shedeur Sanders, and even little old Dylan Gabriel. They could all make a start this year, so just walk away from the QB situation quickly. What? Someone on the Browns having legal trouble? Actually, Quinshon Judkins isn't even on the Browns because he hasn't even signed with the team after his domestic violence arrest in July. So we don't know what's going to happen with this situation. He may not even play a single down this year. I would just let someone else have this headache. Like, if we do hear that he signs and he's just going to miss the first 6 to 8 games, I still wouldn't rush to draft him. Yes, he was a good prospect, but he's a rookie on a bad offense that missed all of training camp. The Browns may just stick with Dylan Sampson or Jerome Ford anyway. Platforms have very different ADPs on Sampson and Ford. Like on ESPN, Ford is RB 43 and Sampson is at 46. On DraftKings, Ford is at 52 and Sampson is above him at 46. I currently have the veteran Ford ranked above the rookie Sampson, but that could change with more camp reports. Like, Ford has been a nice back in the NFL, but he's not too much of a barrier for Sampson that he could edge him out in camp. At this point, I think Ford starts week 1, but Sampson may come on strong later in the year. I liked Sampson as a prospect, and I thought he was actually drafted later than he should have been in the 4th round. If the Browns want to assess younger talent in a lost season, say they are, 2-7 in week 9 or 10 or whatever it is, he could get a lot of run as the season goes on. So I'm not the biggest Jerry Jeudy fan, but he did refine some of his route running deficiencies in 2024. He should be the wide receiver 1 in this offense, although I think Cedric Tillman could make it a closer race than ADP suggests. Flacco still has a lively arm to give him some catchable targets downfield, but this offensive line is ranked 27th by PFF. And Flacco is just a statue back there. So there's going to be few touchdowns to spread around, if that's the truth, and Flacco will have to get rid of the ball faster than he wants to. Stefanski is still a great play caller in my mind, so he should be able to get something out of it with his heavy play action offense. They'll probably have to play catch up most games. So Jeudy could be a garbage time merchant. I think they're wanting to run the ball a little more, I mean, easily more than last year when they were first in pass attempts as a team. But I think Stefanski just wants to get the ground game going more. But playing catch up, I mean, they may just have to pass it more than they want to. So Jeudy was wide receiver 24 in points per game last year and has the same sort of ceiling this year, although the wheels could easily fall off for the offense at any point. Cedric Tillman is somewhat of a sleeper in this offense. He was charted with a 70.2% success rate versus man coverage last year, so that's a very strong rate. And he was compared to Courtland Sutton by Matt Harmon of Reception Perception. He could be a true X receiver for years to come. I wouldn't go crazy in an offense like this, but he's a great target later in best ball drafts. It would just be tough to figure out when to start him in redraft without a Jeudy injury, probably, unless somehow he overtakes Jeudy. Then, wheels up for him. So David Njoku is not at all a sexy pick, but he actually finished quietly as tight end 4 in points per game last year. The Browns led the league in pass attempts last year. So, take that with a pound of salt, and they won't be leading again this year, like I said. He'll have some solid stretches, but he kind of is what he is at this stage of his career. Lower ceiling due to a bad offense, but should be targeted at a pretty high rate. He goes at tight end 8 on ESPN and 10 on DraftKings. I have him ranked at tight end 9. If you find that he drops on draft day, which he does a decent amount just because they find him boring, I'd scoop him up. Last team, best team, right? Wrong, as we are talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a weird year for Mike Tomlin and the team. It's sort of feels like a make or break year for them. It's such an old team, and they seem to have put all their chips out on this working out with Aaron Rodgers. Do I think it will? Hell no. He was bad last year with the second most pass attempts in the NFL, Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. With all that, he gave you 15.7 points per game. He's now a year older, and his top 2 targets are an inconsistent DK Metcalf and Jonnu Smith, Calvin Austin. I don't know. There's no upside here, and the vibes from camp are pretty bad. Like, there's no reason to entertain this nonsense. So Arthur Smith has long been an enemy to all fantasy football players for his weird personnel tendencies and his skeezy mustache, but the guy knows how to call a run game. I'm actually higher on Jaylen Warren this year than I am on Caleb Johnson. Rodgers has always wanted a veteran running back he trusts in pass protection. So Warren is one of the best pass protecting backs in the game. While that was a big knock on Johnson coming out of college, I still think there will be a committee approach, but I think Warren gets the high value touches. He was injured most of last year, so he was a little ineffective. So people just forget how explosive he was before that injury. He's going as RB 31 on DraftKings and 33 on ESPN. Like, he's a steal at those prices. I have him at RB 27, but he has a higher ceiling than that. Haven't been drafting much of Johnson, as I think he's going to be sort of Najee 2.0, but with less touches as a rookie. He's going as RB 24 on ESPN and 25 on DraftKings. That's just too rich for me. Like, this is a low ceiling offense that will be snail paced, and Rodgers has been just a locker room cancer the last few years. Like, I don't see that working in Johnson's favor. The only draftable receiver in most redraft leagues is DK Metcalf. He's big, he's fast, he's inconsistent, and he was wide receiver 34 in points per game last year with a better QB in Geno Smith. Most of his production came down the field, as he was third in receptions over 20 yards in the NFL. Rodgers just wants to get the ball out of his hands as fast as possible at this stage of his career. So it's just a strange marriage between the two. Like, with a run-heavy offense, a bad QB wide receiver fit, and a slow pace of play, I just don't see Metcalf having a big year. He's wide receiver 21 and 19, respectively, on DraftKings and ESPN. I have him at wide receiver 23. Look, he's not going to crush your draft, like, just be a drag on your team, but I just don't see the upside here. Like, so Calvin Austin, who was named as the wide receiver 2 in camp, he could be a dart throw in late round best ball, I guess. He's more of a PPR scam type player. I've seen Roman Wilson taken, but I personally wouldn't draft him. Okay, so Arthur Smith did what he does and nuked the value of 2 draftable tight ends in Jonnu Smith and Pat Freiermuth when he traded for Smith. So I have Smith ranked higher than Freiermuth, but both are middling tight end 2s that should only be streamers when we find out the snap share for both. I haven't been drafting much of either, but I would guess Jonnu will be more valuable for fantasy if you insist on taking one. He's still just going to be a streamer. Okay, well, I hope you got something useful out of this AFC North breakdown. I need one more sip, I think, of this Gricka Vjestica, and I will make my conclusion. So I've enjoyed the beer. I didn't like the first half, which I've only gotten through less than half of the bottle. I didn't like it as much as the honey beer from last episode. And like I told you, I'm what they call a honey slut. So I think I'm going to put this beer at 6th. Let's see. No, I'm going to put it 7th. I'm going to put it behind the honey beer and behind the Shipyard Pumpkinhead Ale, which had entirely too much pumpkin, but kind of got better as it went along. It's going just in front of the Hop and Sting Christmas Cookie Ale, which was a fraud with no cookie taste. Yeah, so that's where it's going to go. So go find that on the website, tapintofantasy.com. But that's going to do it for this episode of Tap Into Fantasy. If you liked what you heard, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps the show find other degenerates like you. Hit me up on X at LG_fantasy. Thanks for tapping in, and until next time, happy pours, happy scores.